Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Shri Mayapur Navaditam ki jai. Ganga Maya Jamuna Maya ki jai. Shrimati Tulsi Devi ki jai. Shrimati Bhakti Devi ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Harinam Sankirtan Yagna ki jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Samveda Bhaktavinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 5, text number 20. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Na prairishyat priyam prapya. Na prairishyat priyam prapya. No dvijat prapya chapriyam. No dvijat prapya chapriyam. Stira buddhir asamudha. Stira buddhir asamudha. Brahmavid brahmani stitam. Brahmavid brahmani stitam. Na praristyet priyam prapya. No dvijat prapya chapriyam. Stira buddhira sammudha. Brahmavid brahmani stira. Na praristyet priyam prapya. No dvijat prapya chapriham. Stira buddhira sammudo. Brahmavid brahmani stitaha. No dvijat prapya prapriyam. Stira buddhira sammudo. Brahmavid brahmani stira. Brahmavid brahmani stira. Na prarisyat priyam prapya. No dvijat prapya chapriyam. Stira buddhira sammudo. Brahmavid brahmani stira. Na, never. Prarisyat, rejoices. Priyam, the pleasant. Prapya, achieving. Na, does. Not. Udvijet, become agitated. Prapya, obtaining. Cha, also. Apriyam, the unpleasant. Sthira buddhi, self-intelligent. Asammudaha, unbewildered. Brahmavid, one who knows the Supreme perfectly. Brahmani, in the transcendence. Sthiraha, situated. A person who neither rejoices upon achieving something pleasant, nor laments upon obtaining something unpleasant, who is self-intelligent, who is unbewildered, and who knows the science of God, is already situated in transcendence. The symptoms of the self-realized person are given herein. The first symptom is that he's not illusioned by the false identification of the body with his true self. He knows perfectly well that he's not the body, but is the fragmental portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is therefore not joyful in achieving something, nor does he lament in losing anything which is related to the body. This steadiness of mind is called sthira buddhi, our self-intelligence. He is therefore never bewildered by mistaking the gross body for the soul, nor does he accept the body as permanent and degrade the existence of the soul. This knowledge elevates him to the situation of knowing the complete science of the Absolute Truth, namely Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. He thus knows his constitutional position perfectly, without falsely trying to become one with the Supreme in all respects. This is called Brahman realization, or self-realization. Such steady consciousness is called Krishna Consciousness. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Chena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Gadim Yat Kripa Tadaham Bande Shri Guru Dinataranam Paramanandamadavam. So this verse describes the situation or the consciousness of a person who is already fixed in this relationship with the Supreme. Okay? In the spiritual world, the relationship with the Lord is servant and the served. It's called Chintamani Ras, servant and served. The Lord is served, and all the living entities are his servant. Even the demigods are the servant of the Supreme Lord. Indra, Brahma, they're all servants of the Supreme Lord Krishna. And the Supreme is a person. It's not some impersonal light or oneness. No. The Lord is a person, right? And therefore you can have a relationship. You can't have a relationship with light. You don't have a relationship with oneness. You have a relationship with a person. So the Supreme Lord is a person. And those who are connected to him, they have qualities, special qualities. The Lord has all transcendental qualities, and the living entity has some of those qualities. Minuteness. Lord is very big, Vibhu, and the living entity is small, Anu. Right? So as the Lord has qualities, so many different qualities, mentioned in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Srila Rupa Goswami, translated and given in summary, the nectar of devotion. Nectar of devotion. So there, the qualities of Krishna are described. Right? And the living entity has a certain portion of all those qualities also. Right? But minutely. Krishna is an ocean of those qualities, and we're a drop from that ocean. The same quality. So, here we see that the phrase is used, the first phrase, na prahishyat priyam prapya. So he's not overly elated when he gets. Prapya means to get something, prapti, to obtain something. So if something favorable happens to a devotee, he's not overly elated, right? Neither is he very upset if he loses something. Why? Because the devotee of the Lord knows that everything in this material world is temporary, whatever it is. The living entity inside this body, right? Temporarily we're inside the body. I'm sorry to tell you this, but the body is not permanent. It's not going to last forever. It dwindles, it becomes old, it becomes diseased, and finally the body is finished. Right? So generally speaking, people who are persons who are not Krishna conscious, they're overly attached to this body and the things of this body. Right? They're busy accumulating things. This world is a world of dualities. Right? The three modes of material nature is there. Goodness, passion, ignorance. Right? Rajas, tamas, and sattvic modes. And therefore we have dualities. If there's happiness, there's distress. If there's day, there's night. If there's good, there's bad. Right? All of these things are in relationship to this body. Good, bad, happiness, distress. Right? So generally people think if somebody, for example, if somebody respects me, I think, oh, very good. Right? If somebody thinks I'm respectable, then that person must be very intelligent. Right? And if somebody insults me, then my mind becomes disturbed if I get insulted. Right? But a Krishna conscious person, whether insulted, whether respected, he's the same. Neither is overjoyed from some so-called good thing that happens, neither is he disturbed by some so-called bad thing that happens. Right? He's equal in both. Why? Because he is sthira buddhi. His intelligence is fixed. He knows that this material world is in a flux. It's always changing. Always changing. And that he's not part of this material world. He knows that he's part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, Krishna. And he's fixed in his service to Krishna. So what goes on in the material world is not that he's not aware, but he's not overly affected by these things. Whereas persons who are not fixed in the Supreme, who have chosen to ignore their relationship with the Supreme, they're always trying to manipulate the material energy. If it's hot, they try to make it cooler. If it's cold, they turn on the heater. You know, they're always trying to adjust the material energy to suit them, to suit the body, actually. What feels cold? The soul doesn't feel cold. The body feels cold. Why is the soul affected? Because he identifies with the body. The soul's neither hot, right? But because of identifying with the body, the soul feels hot, thinking, experiencing. Turn on the fan. So this material world, and persons that are overly attached to the material world because of a lack of Krishna consciousness, are sthira buddhi, asumadho, they're samudho, or bewildered, continuously try to adjust the material world. Whereas the devotees of the Lord, instead of trying to adjust the material world, they adjust to different things that happen to them. They adjust. They tolerate. If it's hot, they tolerate. If it's cold, they tolerate. It's just like in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where it's described that even if it's winter time, still you have to take your bath. And even in the summertime, still you have to cook your meals. It's very hot, but you have to stand near the fire and cook meals, right? So you have to learn how to tolerate. Right? That ability to tolerate comes about with having fixed consciousness, stira buddhi. Fixed in what? Fixed in the self. And what is the concept of the self that is described here as Brahmavid, right? Brahmavid, one who knows the Supreme perfectly. That is that I am the servant of the Supreme. Some philosophers say that that you can become the Supreme by meditation, by some yoga. You can become God. But if you can become God, you're not God, but you become God, that means that if you're not God, then you're under the control of material energy, right? The conditioned soul is under the control of the material energy, consisting of the three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. So if that's the case, and then by meditation you become God, that means that Maya, or the material energy, is more powerful than God. Therefore we say Mayavadi. Vad means the highest understanding, Maya. Maya is the highest understanding for them. But no. God is always God. You don't become God. Neither by your meditation or by your yoga can you become God. You can become godly, but you cannot become God, regardless of what anyone tells you. Krishna is the highest authority. Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita. There's no one who's a higher authority than Krishna. Mata parantaram nyanyat kintidasti janandanayaha. I am the highest truth, Krishna says. And even Arjuna confirms, Param Brahma, Param Dham. Krishna is the supreme Brahman, the supreme abode. So he's saying that our position is that we're his parts. My angsa, mamai vangsa, jiva loke, jiva bhuta, sanatanaha. That we're his part. We're part of the Supreme Lord. We're not the Supreme Lord. We're part. Eternally. It's not that you do some meditation or you do some yoga and you become God. How is it possible? Not possible. But you can understand your relationship with God as God's eternal part and parcel. And that is the message of the Bhagavad Gita. The message is to perform bhakti. Manmana bhavamad bhakto madhya jimam namaskaru. Krishna says, fix your mind on me, offer obeisances to me, become my devotee. This is the message of Bhagavad Gita, to surrender unto Krishna. Sarva dharmam parityaja mamekam saranam bhaja. So until we come to that platform, we're bewildered. We're thinking that I'm the controller. I can enjoy here. I can manipulate this energy for my enjoyment. But this is not possible. One may struggle very hard, but in the end, just like Mahatma Gandhi, he struggled for his country, right? But in the end, somebody was not satisfied, and he shot him, right? So that's the nature of the material world. Materially, you can't satisfy anyone. Materially, you can't satisfy anyone. People only become satisfied when they endeavor to please the Supreme. When we use our senses and our intelligence and our mind in trying to satisfy the Supreme, then we become satisfied. And what's the example in Bhagavatam Prabhupada gives? Huh? Yes, pouring water on the root of the tree supplies water to all the leaves, all the branches, right? So if you try to satisfy Krishna, then everyone else will become satisfied by trying to satisfy Krishna. And how can we satisfy Krishna? In this age, we can satisfy the Supreme Lord. In previous ages, they performed yagyas, different kinds of yagyas, offering ghee in the sacrificial fire and grains and chanting mantras, right? But these things are not easily performed in the age of Kali. So the Lord has made a very exceptional process for performing yajna. And the Bhagavatam talks about it. Yagnai Sankirtana Prayi Yajanti Husumedasa. That the Nam Sankirtan is the yajna of this age, Kali Yuga. In Kali Yuga, people are not very much inclined to spiritual life. Right? They are very busy trying to enjoy the senses. And in this way, they pay no attention to spiritual life. They're not interested. This is explained in Bhagavatam. But unless and until the living entity becomes engaged in establishing his relationship with the Supreme, he won't be happy, he won't be satisfied. The devotee of the Lord can understand this because of his close relationship with the Lord. He doesn't try to become the Supreme, but he tries to satisfy the Supreme by his words, by his thoughts, and by his activities. Iha yasya karmana manasa gira. That the devotee of the Lord engages his words in describing the glories of the Lord. He uses his mind in thinking of the beautiful form of the Lord. And he performs activities with his body to satisfy the Lord. Just like Maharaj Ambarish, he was emperor of the whole world. You can just imagine how many responsibilities he had. So responsible. Yet, every day he would walk to the temple. He would use his arms in sweeping the temple. And he would use his mind to think of the lotus feet of the Lord. Savai Mana Krishna Padara Vindayo. Maharaj Ambarish. So this verse is describing someone who is fixed in the service of the Lord, thinking of the Lord, rendering service of the Lord, trying to please the senses of the Lord. And in that way, he becomes equiposed in whatever happens. Whether someone insults or someone glorifies, he's the same. Just like Jad Bharat, Jad Bharat was moving around just like a madman. And sometimes people were throwing stones and spitting on him, but he wasn't disturbed. Right? He wasn't disturbed. And there's a whole conversation between Jad Bharat and King Rahugana in Srimad Bhagavatam. The palki carriers of the king had commandeered this Jad Bharat because he looked very strong, right, to carry the palanquin, palki. So Jad Bharat, he was careful not to step on any ants, right? Didn't want to kill any ants. So sometimes he was stepping this way and that way, and the palki was moving. Right? So the king chastised the palki carriers. Huh? And they said, "My dear king, it's not us, it's him, this new boy. He's going like this and that." So the king chastised Jad Bharat. "Hey, fool, rascal, carry it properly, or you'll be punished." So Jad Bharat, he never spoke anything to anyone. But this time he replied to the king, and he told the king many transcendental instructions. Right? And then the king realized that this is no ordinary person. And the king came down from the palki and offered his obeisances to Jad Bharat and accepted him as his guru. And he took on many instructions from him. So Jad Bharat wasn't disturbed. But for the benefit of the king, he gave so many instructions. And this is the mood of the devotee, to try to help other people. People are suffering in so many ways in this material world. They work very hard for their family, right? But in the end, can you stay with your family? If you make a nice house for your family, how long can you stay there? After some time, you have to go. Nobody can stay permanent. Jitna ache ghar banayenge to ek din chhodi jana chahiye. You can't stay. You have to go. Huh? So this body is like that. One day we have to leave this body. Can't stay here. Everything in the material world that you work for very hard, one day you have to leave it. Whether it's your reputation as a great scholar, master degree, PhD degree, PhD. It's gober, piled high and deeper. At death, what is the value of that? Huh? Can your PhD save you from death? No. So this is real PhD, this science of bhakti that Krishna is giving in the Bhagavad Gita. This is higher education, right? This is doctorate, real doctorate. Why? You can solve the real problems of life. And what are the real problems of life? Janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha doshana darshanam. These are real problems. People advertise the problem is a food problem. But even elephants, they don't have PhD. They don't have BA. They're not metric passed. But yet elephants are getting their food, isn't it? They live in the jungle. They don't go to factories. But they're eating 80 kilos a day. We can't even eat half a kilo. They're eating 80 kilos. So this world is arranged for everyone to get what they need. You know, there's a saying, there's enough for everyone's need, but not enough for everyone's greed. Lalach, lobha, greed. If a bird comes along and there's sometimes the lorry, one bag of grains falls off the lorry, breaks open. So the bird will come take a little bit, wo chew aayega, thoda khayega, chale jayega. But if a man comes, he'll take up the whole thing and take it home. Lalach. There's enough for everyone's need, but not their greed. So this Bhagavad Gita teaches us how to live in this world, how to come to the platform of this stira buddhi, of a Krishna conscious person, of Brahmani stitaha, Brahmani stita. This should be our goal in life. This should be our goal in life, to become fixed in spiritual consciousness, fixed in transcendence, Brahman, which means fixed in Krishna consciousness. So that's the sum and substance of this verse. Are there any questions? Mike, if you have any questions, you can ask them.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji, for the very nice class. You were very nicely explaining that how devotees are not affected by this duality. But then we see from the fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam the example of Dhruv Maharaj when his brother Uttama was killed by Yakshas. So he also became angry and he started killing the Yakshas. So how to understand that episode which comes in the fourth canto?
See, Lord Brahma had to come and cool him down. If somebody kills your brother, then it's natural you may become angry. Right? And because Dhruva was such a powerful king, he was killing many yakshas. But he had already avenged his brother's death. And then unnecessarily killing is not good. So it gives us the instruction that we have to be very careful about anger. Don't let it control us, right? You can use anger in the service of Krishna, like Hanuman. Hanuman became angry. Arjuna became angry. On the battlefield of Kurukshetra, he had to fight. Unless you're angry, how can you fight? Right? To become angry. But that was anger used in the service of Krishna. And Dhruva forgot for a moment. And the anger was using him, and Lord Brahma had to inform him to stop killing the yakshas unnecessarily. So this anger is very powerful thing. So we have to be careful. That is there to give us an example of use things, whatever it is, even in anger, in the service of Krishna. Don't let that thing use you.
Also, you were explaining very nicely that how people claim themselves to be God. So, even in the times of Krishna,
especially in India, not so much other places, but in India, there's one God on every street corner. Wo bhi Bhagavan hai, wo bhi Bhagavan hai. People get together and they vote, this is Bhagavan. But the same Bhagavan has to go to the dentist for the toothache. Bhagavan has toothache. We're not interested in such Bhagavan. We want the real Bhagavan. That's Krishna. See Krishna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. That time he had many grandchildren. He had great-grandchildren. but yet he was looking like a young man, right? And these so-called Bhagavans, they're very old, and a big dadi, and jetiya, right? Jeta. Bhagavan. Such Bhagavan, we're not interested. We're interested in the real Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who's claimed by all the acharyas, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Vishnu Swami, Nimbarkacharya. They're all claiming Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. Even Sankaracharya. Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda Mudamate. Your Sanskrit Vyakaran can't save you at the time of death. Bhaja Govinda, Sankaracharya. This is the purpose of life. Render service to Krishna, surrender to Krishna, think of Krishna.
Like what makes the living entity claim that position? Because during the time of Krishna also...
Envy.
Pondaraka was claiming during the time of Krishna that he is...
Pondaraka.
Yeah.
By adding 2 arms, he thought he became Vasudev. Right? Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. And the living entity foolishly thinks, I can also enjoy like Krishna. And then he comes into the material world. Material consciousness means I'll also enjoy like Krishna. And the moment that we give up that mentality and we realize that I'm meant to be enjoyed by Krishna, then we're no longer in the material world. We're already in the spiritual world. Jivan mukta su uchite. Iha yasya hare dasha karmana manasa gira naki lapya vivastastu jivan mukta su uchite. So we're practicing to come to that platform. Giving up this mentality of trying to be the competitor of Krishna instead of being Krishna's, cooperating in Krishna's enjoyment. Any other questions? In the back. Thank you for passing that back. Thank you. Good job. Bola na.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji is asking that if someone dies at one's family, so they go to burn that body. So after burning, like while they are seeing that body is burning, they are getting that detachment. So after they are seeing that detachment and they are understanding that one day we have to also go. So after going home, that detachment, why it does not stay at that place. And one, like he's adding, like when we are listening Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, at that time also we are getting some detachment, like material detachment. So after hearing that also, and after some time, why we are not stable, why not we are not getting that vairagya?
See, at the smashan, we see the body is burnt. We become detached. But when you go home, turn on the TV, and the baby's crying, and the food is cooking, and all that's smashan vairagya goes. That vairagya doesn't last. So therefore, we need to hear regularly. By hearing, one can become genuinely detached, have genuine vairagya. Gyan, vairagya, these things can come by regularly hearing Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, every evening we have class in Bhagavad Gita. Every morning we have class in Srimad Bhagavatam. By hearing, one's knowledge increases, one's spiritual existence increases. Just like when you eat food, then you get strength. If you don't eat, you'll become weak. Body will become weak. In the same way, if you don't hear transcendental knowledge regularly, then spiritually you'll become weak. You become spiritually weak. And what happens if you're spiritually weak? All nonsense. That's what happens. All nonsense. Wasting time. You go anywhere. When I first came to India, there were very few liquor shops. I'm talking 35, 40 years ago, right? Very few. Now every corner, liquor shop, hotel, restaurant, and bar, right? Well, that means so many people are wasting their time drinking, intoxication, right? So in order to become spiritually strong, one has to hear regularly Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. From who? From the devotees of the Lord. Krishna told Arjuna, Arjuna, I'm describing this Bhagavad Gita to you because you are my devotee. That means a devotee can understand. So we have to hear from the devotees regularly, and then we'll become spiritually strong. And when we become spiritually strong, then we'll have genuine vairagya. It doesn't mean you have to put on lal kapra. No. You be in your home. You be with your family. But you make your home a temple of Krishna. Make your family Krishna conscious by reading Bhagavad Gita, reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Turn off the TV, 32 inches, 52 inches, all right? So much nonsense on the TV. Turn it off and read it with your family members, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. Get genuine vairagya, genuine strength. Then we'll make the right choices in life, and after this life we'll be able to return home back to Godhead. We won't come back to this miserable world where there's birth, death, old age, and disease. Okay? Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much for listening. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi.